You're sitting in the cab. The sun's dropping. The screen lights up with a code you've never seen, and the machine just quits. Dead in the row. You didn't break it. A line of software decided you weren't allowed to keep going. Here's what I learned the hard way. The tractor you paid for in full was never fully yours, and right now German iron is quietly eating John Deere's lunch in this country because it doesn't treat the farmer like a renter. I lived this. I got grounded, I got gouged, and I clawed my way out. Stay with me, because there's a memorandum signed on January 8th, 2023, that hands you rights you probably never knew you had. And if you already own a lockdown machine tonight, this is for you most of all. It was the second week of bean harvest, somewhere around the middle of October a few seasons back, when my big green tractor threw a code and shut the rear hydraulics down in the middle of a 40-acre field with rain on the radar. I had grain to move and weather coming, and the machine sat there blinking at me like I was the problem. I grabbed my tools. I knew that fix. I'd done it before on older iron 100 times. But the screen didn't want my tools. It wanted a dealer. I called the dealership. They were 3 days out on service calls, harvest being harvest, and the technician couldn't even clear the fault remotely. Somebody had to drive out with a laptop that I'm not allowed to own and plug in a cable I'm not allowed to buy and type in a code I'm not allowed to see, for a sensor I could hold in my own hand, for a job I could do blindfolded. That visit cost me right around $600 before the technician even touched a wrench. Travel time, diagnostic fee, the works. And while I waited those 3 days, the rain came and I lost beans I'll never get back. I didn't add it up that night because I was too angry, but later I did, and the lost yield from that downtime ran me a few $1,000s on top of the invoice. That's the moment my trust broke. Not the breakdown. The breakdown is farming. The lockout is something else. So I started digging, the way a stubborn man does when he's been told to sit down and pay up. And what I found wasn't a glitch. It was a design. Somebody profited from the fact that I trusted the brand on the hood. Let me show you the trap the way it actually got built, piece by piece, because once you see the shape of it, you can't unsee it, and you'll understand exactly why farmers I know are walking away from the most famous name in tractors and writing checks to companies most Americans can't even pronounce. Start with one word that does all the damage: license. When you buy a modern row crop tractor or combine, you buy the steel and the rubber and the engine outright. But the software that makes the whole thing run, the code and the control units that talk to every sensor, you don't buy that. You license it. It says so in the agreement nobody reads at the dealership while they're handing you a pen and smiling. That distinction sounds like lawyer noise until the day it grounds you. Because if you only license the software, then the manufacturer gets to decide who's allowed to touch it, and they decided it's them, just them. The diagnostic program that reads the fault and clears it after a repair, that's locked behind a dealer login. The technician's tool, the cable, the authorization, all of it sits on their side of a wall, and you're standing on the other side holding a wrench and a part that fits perfectly fine. I used to think this was about safety. That's the story they tell. Emissions, complexity, protecting you from yourself. But here's the part that turned my stomach once I saw it written down. Even when the fix is mechanical and simple, even when you've got the right part in your hand, the machine can refuse to run until an authorized laptop says it's okay. That's not safety. That's a toll booth. They built a toll booth on a road you already paid to own. Now follow the money, because this is where it stops being annoying and starts being a business model. Service and parts are some of the most profitable things a dealer network sells. Way more profitable, margin for margin, than selling you the tractor in the first place. So if you can force every meaningful repair back through the dealer, you've turned every machine in the county into a subscription that pays out for 20 years. You sold the cow once. Now you sell the milk forever. And here's the layer that really got me. It's not just the part and the labor. It's the diagnostic fee just to plug in and look. It's the travel charge to drive out. It's the weight, because there's one authorized shop for a huge territory and everybody breaks down during the same 6 weeks of the year. The trap isn't one big bite. It's 1,000 small ones, timed for the exact moment you can't say no. I started talking to neighbors after my own mess, and the stories came pouring out like they'd all been waiting for somebody to ask. One fellow 2 townships over got hit with an invoice north of $1,900, and a big slice of it was diagnostic and authorization time for a repair his own hired man could have finished in an afternoon. Another buddy of mine sat idle for the better part of a week during planting, waiting on an authorized technician. In the spring, when every single day you lose in the field follows you all the way to the elevator in the fall, you can't make up planting days. The calendar doesn't care about your invoice. So that's the trap. But here's the question that kept me up at night. If this is so obviously rigged, why did nobody stop it? Why is it legal? And that's where I found the documents, because therefore I had to know who actually wrote these terms and who blessed them. What I found in the public record is uglier than any invoice. In May of 2021, the Federal Trade Commission put out a report to Congress called Nixing the Fix. That's a real document. You can pull it up tonight. And the federal government's own findings said the flat manufacturer claim that you can't let owners repair their own equipment because of safety and security mostly didn't hold up. There was scant evidence for it. In plain English, the excuse they'd been feeding farmers for years did not survive a federal review. That same year, the president signed an executive order pushing agencies to take on exactly this kind of repair restriction, and the agriculture equipment makers got named in that conversation directly. Suddenly, this wasn't a few cranky farmers on a forum. It was on the record at the highest level that something was wrong with how we're being treated. Then came the lawsuits. Farmers and law firms started filing antitrust cases, and the courts pulled them together into a consolidated case in federal court in the Northern District of Illinois, a multi-district litigation built around Deere's repair services. The core claim, in language a farmer understands, is that the company built a system to monopolize the repair of its own machines and squeeze the people who own them. A judge let key parts of that case move forward instead of throwing it out, which tells you the argument has real teeth. Now sit with that for a second. The most trusted name in American farming, the green and yellow that's painted on barns and belt buckles and grandkids' toy boxes, standing in federal court answering questions about whether it built a monopoly on fixing the very iron our families have run for generations. But here's the twist that really lit me up, and it's the part the corporate folks really don't want spreading around the coffee shop. They saw all this coming. So instead of just opening the doors, they cut a deal designed to look like a fix while keeping the wall standing. On January 8th, 2023, John Deere signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation. A signed agreement, real date, real document, and on paper it promised farmers access to the tools, the software, the manuals, and the diagnostic information needed to repair their own equipment. The headlines made it sound like the war was over. Farmer wins. Right to repair, solved. Read it closer, and the air goes out of the balloon. A memorandum of understanding like that isn't a law. It's a handshake. There's a clause in there that lets either side walk away with notice. It doesn't give you the power to sue if they don't deliver. And the Farm Bureau agreed, as part of the deal, to encourage its members to step back from pushing right to repair legislation at the state and federal level. Think about what that means. The same agreement that promised you tools also worked to slow down the laws that would actually force the tools into your hands. They wrote the terms, and they got an organization, Farmers Trust, to help bless those terms. That's the moment I stopped being angry and got cold and clear instead. Because I realized the people in charge of this system were never going to hand me the key. They'd hand me a promise of a key on their timeline, revocable at will. And a promise is not a repair when your combine is dead and the rain is coming, so I did what farmers do when a tool won't work. I went looking for a different tool. And that's when I started really paying attention to the European tractors, because the question became simple. But before I get into that, if what I'm describing sounds like the story of your operation, I need to tell you about something I put together for farmers who are done being kept in the dark. I wrote a book called Fixed or Owned, and the follow up, Break the Lock, that walks through every layer of this system in plain language. The legal documents, the diagnostic workarounds, the network, and the exact moves you can make this week to stop paying for access to what you already own. It's all in the description below. If you're the kind of person who wants the whole map, not just the highlights, that's where it lives. Now, back to that question that kept driving me. Was there iron out there built by people who didn't treat me like a thief on my own land? Turns out there was. There is. And it's already in fields across this country, quietly outselling expectations and holding its value while the big green machines depreciate and lock up. Let me tell you about Fendt. It's a German brand built in a town called Marktoberdorf in Bavaria, and yes, it's owned by a parent company, AGCO, which is actually American at the top. But the engineering, the culture, the way the machine is built, that's German to the bone. And here's what a Fendt owner kept telling me at a farm show until I finally listened. The thing just runs, and when something needs doing, the path to doing it isn't a locked door. The numbers backed him up. Fendt tractors are famous for holding their resale value better than almost anything else on the market. There are auction records and dealer guides where a used Fendt brings a premium that makes a comparable used green tractor look like it fell off a cliff. When you go to sell, that gap is real money in your pocket, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars on a big horsepower machine. The iron that costs more up front can cost you less over the life of owning it because it doesn't bleed value and it doesn't bleed you on every repair. Then there's Claas, another German outfit, built in a place called Harswinkel, and ask any custom harvester who's run their combines. They're cutting machines, built by people obsessed with cutting. And Deutz Fahr, German engines and tractors with a reputation for being straightforward to work on. These aren't exotic toys. They're serious production machines, and more of them roll onto American farms every single year. Now I want to be straight with you, because I'm not here to sell you a different brand of cage. These machines have electronics too, emission systems, control units, screens, all of it. Modern is modern. But the culture is different, and culture shows up in how hard they make it for you to keep your own machine running. The European market has lived under stronger repair and consumer expectations for years, and that mindset travels with the iron. The wall, where it exists at all, is shorter, and there are more doors in it. That's the shift I started to see across the countryside. Guys my age, guys who swore they'd run green till they died, quietly parking a German tractor in the shed and not looking back. Not because of a paint color, because of a feeling they forgot they were allowed to have. The feeling that the machine works for them. But I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. Sitting on my own busted equipment doing the math, you're thinking, that's great for the man buying new. I can't go drop a couple $100,000 on German iron. I've already got the machine. I'm already locked in. This whole video is for somebody richer than me. Stop. This next part is built for you specifically, the owner who feels nailed to the floor, and it's the part I wish somebody had told me the night I sat in that field. You are not as trapped as they've trained you to feel. There are things you can do this week with the machine you already own without writing anybody a single dollar more than you have to. Here's the first one, and it's the one that costs nothing. Stop volunteering for the trip. A huge share of those dealer invoices come from us calling in fear at the first warning light. Learn your own fault codes. There are manuals, owner communities, and forums where farmers post exactly what a given code means on a given model and whether it's something you can handle in your own shop. I keep a notebook in the cab now. Every code I've ever seen, what it actually was, and what fixed it. That notebook has saved me more than one panic call. Second, the diagnostic access you've been told is impossible to get isn't fully impossible. The manufacturer sells a customer version of its diagnostic and service software. It is not cheap, and they don't advertise it to you at the dealership because the whole business model depends on you not knowing it exists. But a subscription to the customer service diagnostic program, paired with the right interface cable, can let you read and in many cases clear the faults yourself, right there in the field, on your own schedule, at 3 in the morning during harvest if that's when you break down. For a working operation, that subscription can pay for itself in a single avoided dealer call during the busy season. Most farmers I talk to have never once been told it's even an option. Third, and this is the big one, get into the second-hand and independent repair network that already exists in the shadows. There are independent mechanics, retired dealer technicians, and whole online communities of farmers who have figured out the workarounds, who have the cables, who know which jobs truly need authorization and which ones the dealer just told you needed it. When I plugged into that network, I found out that maybe half the things I'd been driving to the dealer for I never needed to. Half. That's half my repair bills, gone, just from knowing what they didn't want me to know. And fourth, document everything and use the law that's on your side. Save every invoice. Save every diagnostic fee. Save every record of downtime and lost yield. Because the legal and regulatory ground is shifting under these companies right now, and the farmers with paper trails are the ones who will benefit when the rules finally change. You're not just keeping records. You're building the case. That's the bridge out of the trap for the machine sitting in your shed tonight. It's not a fantasy about new iron. It's a set of moves you can start making this week. Knowledge, the customer diagnostic option, the independent network, and a paper trail. Each one is a step toward the door. But there's one more thing. One thing I almost missed, buried in the fine print of that very memorandum they signed to make us all sit down and stop fighting. And it might be the single most useful thing I learned in this whole journey. Therefore, let me give you the part I really came here to give you. Here's the secret. And it comes straight out of that Memorandum of Understanding dated January 8th, 2023. The same document I told you was mostly a handshake. They wrote that deal hoping it would calm everybody down. But hidden inside the language they meant as a shield, they made a written commitment they did not expect ordinary farmers to actually use. They committed in writing to make available to owners and independent repair shops the tools, the specialty software, the diagnostic capability, the manuals, and the parts needed to repair the equipment to you, not just to the dealer, to you, the owner. Almost nobody invokes it. That's the trick. They signed a piece of paper promising access, betting that the average farmer would never read it, never reference it, never walk into the dealership and say the words. So here's exactly what you do, and you can do it this week. You contact your dealer and your manufacturer directly in writing, and you cite that Memorandum of Understanding by name and by date. You state plainly that you are an equipment owner requesting access to the diagnostic software, the manuals, and the tools that they committed to provide under that agreement. You put it in an email so there's a record. You make them answer in writing. When you put it on paper and reference the signed commitment by name, the conversation changes completely. You're no longer a confused customer begging for a favor. You're an owner holding them to their own signature, and they know that document is public, and they know the antitrust case is sitting in federal court in Illinois, and they know which way the wind is blowing. The same paper they meant to use to keep you quiet becomes the key that opens the door. And it goes further than one handshake, because the farmers who refused to settle for a memorandum took the fight to the states. Colorado passed the first agricultural right to repair law in the country, signed in the spring of 2023 and enforced starting the first day of 2024, that legally requires manufacturers to give farmers and independent shops the resources to fix their own equipment. Not a handshake, a law with teeth, and other states have been lining up bills behind it. The path that one community of stubborn farmers and repair advocates kept alive, the path the big companies tried to pave over with a friendly-looking agreement, is open. It's narrow, and they hope you won't find it. But it's open, and now you know where it is. That's the exit. It existed the whole time. It was buried in fine print they wrote and funded and got blessed. A handful of people refused to let it close. And tonight, it's yours to walk through. So can you actually get free? Yes. Not by waiting for them to be generous, By learning your machine, by getting the diagnostic access they hid from you, by plugging into the network of independent farmers and mechanics who never bought the lie, by citing the agreement they signed and the laws our own people fought to pass, and yes, when it's time to buy again, by giving your hard-earned money to companies that build iron for owners instead of renters. I went from sitting dead in a wet bean field, waiting 3 days for a man with a forbidden laptop, to running my own shop on my own time and writing a check to the dealer only when I truly choose to. That's not luck. That's a decision, and you can make it too. Here's what I really want you to feel as you turn this over tonight. They didn't just take money out of your pocket. They took something quieter and more important. They took the simple dignity of a man being able to fix the thing he owns. And you are allowed to take it back. You earned that iron. The dirt under your nails paid for it. Nobody in an office 1,000 miles away gets to tell you you're only renting your own life's work. You're the kind of person who fixes things. Who keeps a tractor running long past the day some engineer decided it should be retired? Who believes that what you buy you own all the way down? That's not stubbornness. That's the whole reason this country still grows its own food. Don't ever let them shame that out of you. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean this, because the comments on these are where the real network gets built. Tell me the worst diagnostic or authorization fee you've ever been hit with, the one that still makes your jaw tighten, and tell me what the repair actually was. Drop it in the comments right now, the brand, the model, the dollar amount, and where you're farming from. Name your machine and name your worst invoice. Somebody reading is going to recognize that exact code and tell you how to beat it next time. That's how we take this back, one shared fix at a time. And if you're done renting what you already bought, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are pulling our iron out of their grip. Because next I'm breaking down the exact customer diagnostic setup, the software and the cable, the real prices, and how to get reading your own fault codes without ever begging a dealer again. You won't want to miss that one. The door's open. Walk through it with us. Because here's the truth I keep coming back to. The system only works as long as we stay quiet and pay up. The moment we start talking, sharing codes, citing that signed agreement by name, and naming our prices out loud, the wall they built starts to crack. You are not alone in that field anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. Let's go take it all back. Together. I lived that lockout myself. And here's where I show you the way out. Inside the circle, you get the deeper version of this video, the lock machine workaround, and the full repair rights playbook, picking up right where I stopped. And you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone. Folks like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime, one click.